The Tactile and Textile series explores the balance between the visual and touch designs. My client is the Slow Design Studio, which is a creative studio run by the Marine Victor Holland. The studio based in Norway, mainly specializing in interior design and home furnishing textile. The slow approach is the core value upheld by the Slow Design Studio. A variety of in-depth thinking can be derived from the slow design, such as the environmental friendliness and the sustainability of the materials. The majority of the product designed by the studios are inspired by the nature and all made by hand. The slow design making process and the Nordic design style, highlighting the relaxation and idleness, shed a light on the aesthetic values of the slowing down the pace of our life and perceiving nature. Before start creating my textile samples, I have to understand what is the slow design. Slow design is a holistic approach to creative thinking, process, and outcomes. It's a design philosophy that focuses on the promoting well-being for the individual, society, and the nature environment. I've heard about slow food, slow traveling, and now I came across the slow design. Like the other two, it let us experience an imaginary parallel reality where the Industrial Revolution never happened. Things are done slowly compared to our modern rhythm of life. It's about a handcraft, and through that process things create an additional value for the consumers. These are my immediate thoughts with the zero background knowledge on this topic. My online research reveals that slow design is far bigger than just a design. It's quite a visionary concept which ties together the design, happiness, sustainability, dematerialization, and the society as a whole. A paper by the Textile Environment Design says that the new approach will slow the metabolism of our consumerist society and create a positive behavioral change. I'm curious to read about the practicalities and how the concept translates into the operative solutions. My client, the Slow Design Studio, says that the goal is not necessarily to slow everything down, but re-establish an understanding of the nature piece. Sometimes it is necessary to use more time in order to do the right things. Caring for the nature, animals, and people are central. Craftsmanship and quality is the counterweight to mass production and a consumer behavior that has lost its proportions. The Tactile and Textile series was inspired by a conversation I had with a friend who is colorblind. From that conversation, I learned that the deeper degree of the human visual impairment, the greater the reliance on the texture of the item. The work is intended to allow everyone, including the group with the visual impairment like colorblind people, to appreciate and experience the textile designs. After experimenting with different handicraft techniques, I decided to combine the fabrics of different grains to create an entirely new touch experience for the users. All these four works adopt a natural color schemes comprising the black, gray, and brown, which are the most frequently used color by my client and the most close to their original color in the colorblind view. In the meantime, it is also a prime color system capable of highlighting the nature and the style of the Nordic design. In the term of material selection, I made the biodegradability of the fabrics a consideration for my slow design. As such, I decided to follow the mono fabric principle and used 100% pure wool as the raw material. The first sample was made with the hand weaving technique. I chose the 3 woolen yarn with similar colors and mixed them in the weaving. Gray was the prime color in the horizontal, while the white yarn in vertical lines was used as decoration. To highlight the contrast of the touch sensations, I used the 2 different weaving techniques alternatively. The first was the regular weaving of the flattened texture, and the second technique created the 3D bulged patterns. The combination of the 2 types of texture resulted in a regular pattern that could be used intensively. For the second sample, the patching method was used to join fabrics with 4 different textures together. The 4 textures were made with the handcraft techniques of weaving, knitting, wet felting, and needle felting. Using wool as the raw material, the 4 fabrics making techniques were utilized to create 4 different touch sensations. This fabric is suitable to be used in small items like back cushion and table mat. The third sample was made with combined techniques of crocheting and wet felting, the brown being the prime color. Other fleeces was used as the supplementary ornamentation to disorganize the regular crocheted grains, and thus create a visual sense of layers. I used wet felting to make the flat fabric, creating a contrast with the plush fabrics made with the crocheting. The first piece of the fabric was made with the wet felting and crocheting techniques. By superimposing the fabrics with different grains in the making process, a texture that feels differently from the regular felt cloth was created. I crocheted the yarns to make the thick strings and crocheted it again to create a thick knit pattern. Then I stitched the crocheted part with the wet felting part together to form the contrast of the tactility. The nature color combination were intended to better cater the client's preferences for the nature sense of quality. I selected Slow Design Studio as my client because I like their values and the pleasure that slow design can bring to me. These 4 pieces of fabric were made purely by hand, which was a time-consuming process and required a lot of the patience. But I didn't feel bored at all because I had truly experienced the fun of design and enjoyed the slow design process. I settled down to allow myself to think slowly across process from the material selection to creation of texture. Before settling myself down on a chair to knit or weave the fabrics that I designed, I often pick up one of my favorite vinyl record and put it on the player, and then made myself a cup of tea. The slow design in itself is a method to relieve your stress and a countermeasure to escape from the fast-paced life and thinking. The slowness is an attitude towards life.